Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 644, recorded the weekend of July 17th. I'm your host, Patrick. I'll be doing the news by myself today. There was no screenshot of the week this week, so we're just using an old one that I liked. We'd like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. There will probably be a show next weekend. Kind of be a little fluid with that right now, just based on how much news there is and my own schedule. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages. At DDOcast on Twitter is the best place for me, or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, I'm going to cover the news. I'm not sure at this point in time if I'll be able to get a segment in afterwards. So it may just be the news this week, but we'll try to get something. But I wanted to make sure we did get the news this week because we saw Update 50's second preview this week. So we'll get into that and also a little kind of what's coming up with that, and specifically some of the monster changes and updates. And it wasn't a whole lot that was new, but we'll kind of get into that. Regarding monster changes, Little Bell kind of did a less formal write-up and just kind of a general information. So I'm going to do that first, which actually happened before the preview came out. And then we'll get into what is actually covered in the preview. Little Bell said there's questions about skills being reduced, and if that was still going to be viable at endgame, if DCs weren't going to be too high and that kind of thing. So Linabelle said Intim, Diplo, and Bluff checks had their DCs reduced across the board when they took 10 wisdom off of each monster in Legendary 2 content. They are also planning on hand-adjusting specific raid bosses further down to make their Intim checks easier to achieve. I would assume that's going to specifically be Lord of Blades and maybe Zizzy. Those are kind of the two that are always higher. Interestingly enough, skill bonuses on gear actually changed the least out of all bonuses, going from 22 to 20. Although I will point out, as an aside, that kind of ignores the stat squish, since stats are going from I think 22 down to 14. So there is a little bit more than just that plus 2, as well as the insightful stats and stuff like that. Almost no monsters besides those in Legendary 2 have PRR or MRR, and those that did got those values, which were only 10, removed from this pass. And if the changes do make their standardized trap profiles too difficult, which is unlikely given that they haven't been adjusted upwards in about 5 years, they can obviously take a look at those as well. He said he believes the only trap profile in the game currently that's not following our standards is in Creeping Death, which is why those DCs are still, to his knowledge, the highest in the game. That being said, those kinds of DCs aren't his personal area of expertise, so let him know if that's not correct. If they do miss something, they'll try their best to get it corrected as soon as feasibly possible. Can't really commit to us getting everything done to 100% perfection on the first try. They're only human. But reemphasize that this is a huge priority for them, and they appreciate patience in the lead up to the second preview. If you do notice anything strange or stated incorrectly in the second preview, let them know, and they'll make further adjustments. And then further, for clarity, all monsters within Sharn content onwards at the level cap currently have the Legendary 2 buff, which is something they're explicitly removing. That's how they're able to say stuff like all monsters are losing 100% fortification. That buff does that. This is not something for a select few monsters. It's something that has been part of the last several years of endgame level cap content. Yeah, Sharn came out, 2 years ago at this point? 2.5 years ago at this point? Boy, how the time flies. Right. So, Update 50, Preview 2. I'm just going to kind of cover some of the newer stuff. In the kind of the main, just general release note stuff regarding Against the Demon Queen. Zawabi now bestows and resolves against the Demon Queen, the 6-player pre-raid, and Zawabi's Revenge, the 12-player raid, separately. You are now only required to complete against the Demon Queen once per life in order to play Zawabi's Revenge. After that, Zawabi will allow you to choose which quest to speak to him about. Yay! The pre-raid was always kind of a bit of a pain in the butt. Although Zawabi's Revenge is a really short raid, so I understand why they left it like it was for a long time. But against the Demon Queen is no longer restricted by raid timer. And raid timer bypass hourglasses now work properly on Zawabi's Revenge, so you can use those there. The 64-bit game client is now the default choice for new installs. They updated the wording on the legacy client to indicate that it is no longer supported. So I guess that means the 32-bit client is no longer being supported. I do not know what that means for Macs. As I recall, there was an issue with Macs no longer supporting 32-bit game clients. And if DDO is now firmly a 64-bit and no longer supporting a 32-bit, that may mean that Macs have an easier time. I'm not a Mac user, so I don't know. But that may be something for everyone. Monster Manual Volume 8 will be available. So it's free to VIPs, and in this preview can be obtained by purchasing in the DDO store. The Monster Manual 8 has categories for the following monster types: griffins, satyrs, goblins, animated objects, living spells, gnomes, harpies, Marilus, Forge Race, and wights. It's a pretty solid list. I like that list. Let's see. There's also the Horizon Walker. Got a little bit of tweaks and passes. It's kind of mostly movement based. So there's some plus to dexterity bonus, plus to dodge, the maximum dodge stuff. They did increase some of the debuffs a little bit. There's a haste SLA now. Maybe one of the bigger changes was the capstone was changed to you always consider marked targets to be favorite enemies and deal extra damage against them. That mileage may vary with that. They're already kind of talking about whether or not they want to leave that in there. It's really great for some characters and useless for other characters. If you don't have favorite enemy, then it doesn't do anything for you. They also, because mobility is kind of a thing in here, they're trying to figure out how to do Archer's focus a little faster. Steel Star was pretty blunt and said that Archer's focus will not be changed to be added while moving. There will always be that trade-off. But they did add an ability in Horizon Walker at level 3 that once you remain stationary for 6 seconds, you get 1d4 plus 4 stacks of Archer's focus. And that will trigger once per time you remain stationary. So it'll kind of help you build back up to that. There was also a little bit some changes to give you base attack bonus equal to your character level when using bows, which is I think scrunched into the threat range and threat multiplier for criticals, expanded stuff, some stuff like that. There's I don't know if there's anything like huge out of here. The damage is going up a little bit, so I think it looks a little bit more competitive. I'm still not sure that Deepwood Stalker isn't going to outpace it if you're a pure ranger. But if you're not a pure ranger, you're not like really heavy into that tree, I think you'll be okay in here. Endgame itemization. So this is kind of where they put in the information about monsters more clearly. They've been increasing the power level of monsters found at level cap as the power level items increased over time. Since they're adjusting these items downwards, they will be adjusting monsters downward to match. There are many layers to the monster adjustments, and certain adjustments will only affect certain monsters, so they've split out their changes into a few sections. These sections are additive. If a monster is in a Legendary 2 dungeon, it will have all 3 sets of modification, as it is level 20 plus, level 30 plus, and in a Legendary Tier 2 dungeon. Changes that affect all monsters in all content that is level 20 plus. -6 saving throws. That's it. Which seems fine-ish. I mean, the itemization isn't really changing at that level, so itemization is really only changing at level 29 and above, so that should be okay. Changes that affect all monsters and all content that is level 30 plus. -25% maximum hit points, -25% armor class. Which doesn't seem like a lot, although a quarter hit points. Trash mobs will go boom faster. Although I think that really raid bosses is where that'll really be noticeable. 25% is a lot to reduce them by. Changes that affect all monsters and all content from Sharn onwards. Legendary Tier 2. This buff scales slightly with your difficulty. Values shown are for Reaper difficulty monsters. On normal, hard, or elite, they will lose less because their bonuses were lower. So this is -60 attack bonus, -4 AC, -10 to saving throws, -35 to ranged and melee power, -45 to universal spell power, -100% fortification, -150% fortification bypass, which explains why my 200% fortification never seems to be very decent. -10 spell penetration, -5 influence DCs for things like intimidate, diplomacy, or bluff, and -10 PRR. Furthermore, with this patch, they are adjusting how party scaling functions in epics. This mechanic is not generally talked about in a player-accessible way, so they've tried their best to explain everything that is changing. Party strength is the value that each member of the party you're in contributes to as soon as they step in the dungeon. A lower party scaling value is better than a higher one. The lower the number, the greater the reduction in damage, maximum hit points, and player affecting crowd control duration in your instance. Previously, all characters were considered party strength 1.5 in most of epics, while in heroic, most players are closer to 1, if not 1 exactly. They've changed this so that all players at level 21 plus have a party strength of 1. The results are as follows. Note that this does not function in Reaper mode or raid instances, so players will see non-party scaled monsters in those situations. A one-person party strength of 1, will have monster hit points of 62% of normal compared to right now, which is 68% at 1.5. A two-person party will have monsters at hit points at 75% instead of 80% because they were party strength 3. A three-person party, strength 3, will have an 87% hit points and it was previously 100% because your party strength would have been 4.5. A four-person party will operate the same because 4 is the maximum. So, should give you a little. If you like soloing, you should have an easier time here as well. The other change that was noted, this was not actually in the preview, but Linabelle let us know that with Update 50, underwater combat in all dungeons will 1. No longer reduce attack speed, 2. Grant player and monsters 20% resistance against fire and give a 20% vulnerability against electric. Other damage types will be unmodified. No more flat resistance. Previously, monsters also had 100 fire resistance because it would hard block low-level players still. 3, no longer reduce movement speed overall, but you'll still have the modified acceleration time, which means it takes about 1 second more to reach top movement speed than standard movement controller would. 4, you'll still float down slow. And 5, casting various spell types will no longer be blocked. And there was much rejoicing. Translation, as you might imagine. Secrets of Salt Marsh has some underwater stuff, and there is, underwater stuff other places in the game. Underwater combat has always been a pain in the ass because of how slow you move and attack and things. Also, fire spells just flat out don't work. So it looks like they're making a lot of this a lot more accessible, which is fantastic and very needed. Let's be honest. So that'll be great. Bonus days give you a plus 5% buddy boost through July 18th. Store sales. The summer sales continue. Week 2 gets 30% off of Wish for Memories, 50% off of Keep on the Borderlands, which is a great deal. There's 8 quests out there. They're all kind of short, but it's a good pack if you haven't gotten it. 50% off of Sentience toolkits, 75% off of Omnispell Dust and Omnispell Stones through July 22nd. Also, the Rise Again, which is the 30% off of select reincarnation items, healing items, spell point potions, and quest XP elixirs through July 22nd. And the coupon for the week, 5 free lasting barkskin plus 3 potions with the coupon code GOODMULCH. GOODMULCH. That'll take us to community news, of which there is basically none. There's no Chronicle this week because Jerry was out. He's on vacation, which is also why there's no screenshot of the week. But I will let folks know you can check out D&D Night on DDO streams Sundays 7 p.m. Eastern. Also, some DDOcast news specifically for DDO Splat. I don't know when that's going to return anymore. Previously, we had been doing Wednesdays. We were planning on coming back in about a week, but that is no longer viable with my schedule. So, yay, things returning back to normal. Yay, more work in the industry for Patrick. Boo, Patrick is working Wednesday nights for the foreseeable future. So, I don't know. We're going to try and figure something out to be streaming DDO more regularly as things kind of wind down for me from umpiring. You should see me doing a little bit more of that. But we are also we'll also mention my guild, the Lava Divers. We've been playing D&D. We've been doing Descent into a Furnace. There's now 6 episodes up on DDOcast.com and our YouTube and Twitch. So if you like watching some D&D, you can come join us for that fun as well. Right, that'll close out the news portion of the show. So thanks for listening, and thanks to everyone who contributes to DDOcast, and to Sandstone Games, to Wizards of the Coast, and to Cyber for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage, or you Twitch DDO, and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. Hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff, including various adventures in DDO, D&D tabletop, and even some other games. If you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us for the latest cast updates at DDOcast on Twitter. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs. All right, hello and welcome back to, this is going to be Hardcore Season 4 Post-Mortem. I'm your host, Patrick. So we're going to be talking about Hardcore Season 4 and kind of how it went, what we liked about it, and kind of the fun stuff that was there. And we have a guest today, Dom.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Welcome. Well, I mean, we should just let's let the cat out of the bag a little bit. Tell us what you achieved on Hardcore Season 4.
Yeah, so this last hardcore season, I decided I would hate myself and, try to push the boundaries a little bit. And myself and a group of others got together and tried to get Reaper wings on hardcore.
And you succeeded.
Yes.
We should say that you succeeded.
Yes.
You did not, as I mockingly joked with you, die at 74 Reaper points or anything terrible like that.
Yeah, that would have been a real mess.
Also, on the behalf of all of our listeners, thank you guys, you and your party, for funding SSG for the last 2 months. We really appreciate that. Um, so yeah, this is our hardcore season 4 postmortem. So it's just kind of fun to kind of talk about how hardcore went and kind of what was there that we liked and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, so how for you? Because we haven't heard you talk on the show about the other hardcore seasons. So how did season 4 kind of compare to the previous seasons?
Yeah, I think overall it felt pretty similar to prior seasons. This season there was a little bit more hiccups. If the lag felt pretty more intense, just like it did in season two. And then there was a couple twists, like the new champs, the mimic event being on. So little twist there, but other than that, like the main aspects of it were pretty similar across the board.
It does seem like we're getting kind of used to hardcore, right? Like, okay, there's new champions. We'll figure that out. Uh, which doesn't seem to take too long. Although, this season's the champs, there was one or two that were very nasty. I think nastier than the previous seasons. The one with the fear dot, uh, pretty nasty. I saw that one catch some people. I think, and then I think there was one that was like would make other things champions around it.
Yep, the symbiont champ.
Right. So that was kind of a fun little wrinkle as well. Um, but yeah, it seemed to me like people have really kind of started to get the hang of hardcore. Um, and we had the mimic hunt, we had new champions, but that didn't really seem to slow many people down once they kind of got into the rhythm a little bit. Because I feel like I saw a lot more people getting a lot more favor, a lot more Reaper XP, uh, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, for sure. The champs were a little bit different because I believe fairly early there was like a list of the champs and what they did. So whether you encountered them, blindly or you read the list, you kind of got a sense after that what to bring into a quest, how to prepare. So like bringing a disease pot for a symbiont champ, for example, or a remove fear pot for the Valera's legs. Um, but the mimics were kind of more of a surprise because there was no announcement about that until I think at least a week in or something like that. So, you know, an hour into the season, you're seeing these death messages about people dying to mimics, and everyone's like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yes, it was my fault. You're welcome. And I definitely had a couple people message me like, "This is your fault." Like, what? There's mimics on hardcore. Like, excellent. This is gonna be fantastic. Um, but yeah, it was definitely the thing. At least for me with the new champions, I was not on hardcore nearly as much as you were, or diving. I was much more casual about it this season. But I feel like the bring a fear. Like there's a guy that gets you with a fear thing, and if you're not immune to fear, or if you can't solve the fear problem, he's gonna kill you. And I feel like that was really the only thing that was really challenging to me about the new champions. Um, and it was pretty easy. I thought it was pretty easy to kind of deal with that. And now, mileage may vary just because I was playing a paladin and I actually took the Lionheart spell, which allowed me to give fear immunity to my party. So, you know, that made it a little easier to solve that problem. But I didn't feel like the champions were like hitting punishingly hard or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, there are certain builds that favored the defense of these champs. So like Paladin basically countered both of those two main champs that would cause a problem.
Hmm.
Um, and like you said, I think symbiont champs, like a disease remove disease, is more common across the board than a fear removal or anything else. So a little bit easier to kind of counter that and
Yeah.
protect yourself from dying.
There wasn't
And you
any.
have a lot more time, right? Like the
Mhm.
disease dot, I think it lasted a minute, but it would tick maybe every 5 seconds. The Valera's Legs Fear dot, you had 5, 6 seconds, and then it's all of your hit points gone at once, not just increments.
Right. Yeah, definitely, but it was fun, and hey, just, as a quick aside, we got to see the season 2 champs on live, which I thought was great. Uh
Yeah, 100%. I love that. And there was the last uh, stream with Cordo talking to Sev, and we were asking about bringing the champs onto live,
Mhm.
both last season and season two. So it was nice to see that they actually, listened to the feedback, brought them on to live. Even I think it was only like 2 weeks, but it was cool to see. And even because it was so far back, season two, you kind of had to remember what those champs did and examine the bios and all that stuff again. So it was a nice twist.
The most that I really remember about the season 2 champs is the first time I ran into him, I was like, "Wait, was that a new champion?" And then next time, "Hey, that's a new champion." "Oh, wait, I'm at a third of my hit points. I need to heal."
Yeah, exactly. So I
Um,
hope they do that again with the season four champs, maybe next summer or hopefully sooner even.
I mean, I'm totally on board with, every month we're gonna change which champs are live and just like rotate through the suites. I'm game. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yep, that would be great, and it would give them the chance to kind of push their creativity with
hmm
with the champs. Like even the season two champs, as different as they were, there were still a lot of similarities to the normal champs. Where this season kind of is a little bit more creative, and it incorporated Reapers in a sense where, like the Symbiont, you could turn a
Reapers
red
into
name into
champion.
a champ, yeah, or a
Yeah,
Reaper into a champ and get the buff. So it's kind of cool to see that.
it's that's just asking for if it comes on live, right? Like, let's see if we can get a Doom Reaper turned into a champion and Vengeance at the same time.
Exactly, exactly. Or even R10 Swordjack and Tempest Spine.
Oh boy. Uh, all right. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of what you went after with the hardcore wings. So I guess you kind of talked a little about hardcore wings, but maybe if you want, go into a little more detail about why you wanted to do wings on Reaper wings on hardcore, and then just kind of what was your game plan going in.
Yeah, for sure. So the why aspect of it, like I said, it was just something to push myself. I mean, in other seasons, we've gotten the rewards, both favor and Reaper XP, so it's just that extra leap forward, I guess. And between seasons, we were kind of joking as a group running Reapers, like, how funny would it be to see someone with wings on hardcore, right? So I was kind of like, nah, no one would ever do that. And then as the season got closer, I'm like, screw it. I mean, what? I have nothing to lose, right? Just see how far we can get, what we can do. So that's kind of the why. In terms of the game plan, like at the beginning, it was very all over the place. Um, but as we started to get into the rhythm of knocking out lives, running the quests, getting a feel for the new champs, uh, it just became a lot easier. And we figured out, what kind of builds we had to have, what gear was the best, and just using that all the way to the end.
Then rinse and repeat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long process, a little bit boring towards the end, but what can you do, right?
Well, you set the goal, and then you got to get it right. So
Exactly.
hey,
Can't stop halfway through.
some of the best goals are kind of start with that. Wouldn't it be cool if, like, oh, no, I'm actually trying to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so what did you find that worked well, and maybe were there some things that you tried that didn't work very well?
Yeah. I think at the beginning, some of our builds and how we were approaching the whole aspect of getting wings didn't work out too well. Um, like for example, my very first tune was a warlock, and then I tried a favorite soul nuker, and they were good, but it wasn't enough to make the quest go by faster to try to reach this goal in a reasonable timeline. So we had to make a bit of tweaks there. We added some quests, removed some quests, stuff like that. What else didn't work too well was Maddie dying all the time. That kind of was a thorn in the side. But other than that, I mean, it was fairly consistent once we got into the rhythm, and you're just making sure that you're trying to play with the best, party setup, best gear, because you had very little room for error throughout the whole season.
Yeah, there's no extra lives this time around.
Yeah, exactly.
Made it a little more challenging. And did you actually, when you had built your first characters, did you know the mimics were going to be a thing?
No, I had no idea. With Warlock, like it was funny because in other seasons, I see people running the Enlightened Spirit Warlock, and I'm like, I couldn't do that. Like that just seems very boring. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Like we'll give it a shot. It's pretty sturdy. It does decent enough damage, so we'll see how it can go. And it worked. I mean, I got to cap, but it just wasn't enough for what we were trying to get done.
Sure. Yeah, I've had that experience with Warlock on the live servers. Of it levels really nice, and then you start trying to do even moderate Skull Reapers, and it lacks a little bit of that boss punch, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, I hear
Exactly.
you.
And even at the beginning, it takes a little bit to just get that boost.
Yep. Yep. Uh, so I kind of wanted to spend a little time. So you guys made it to Reaper Wings, in what 2.5 months, something like that
Yeah, we
on
had about
hardcore.
2.5 weeks left
Yeah.
once we got it.
So I wanted to kind of like try to translate that a little bit to newer and more casual players. Now, I'm not at all going to suggest that those folks you're going to have the time or the ability to get to Reaper Wings in 2.5 months without dying once. However, I think there are some things that say that hey, this is fairly achievable if you like the look of Reaper Wings and you have that as an interest. Um, that you can achieve Reaper Wings. Because you weren't running R10s, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. We were mostly doing R4s, some R5s on the easier stuff like dailies. Um, so it's definitely a little bit scaled back, and you can run with that basically. And like you said, you don't have to worry about dying and have to restart everything.
right. Which is a huge, it makes it a lot easier, right?
Yeah, exactly.
um, so what was kind of your roadmap and what would you kind of say that to hey if for those folks who would like to get Reaper Wings but maybe feel it's too daunting of a task or don't know where to start.
Right. I would say honestly, like if you have the goal of getting it, it's definitely attainable. It, this kind of shed a light of there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and like you said earlier, it may not get done in 2.5 months, but there's no time restraint. So as long as go for it. Um, but yeah, I would just say start with the easier quests. Even if you start with R2, R3, just get a feel for the quests, get a feel for your build, your party comp, because pugging is a whole different scenario as well, right? We had a static group, so it's a little bit easier. Um, but yeah, I mean, we ran about 70 quests that we would normally run on live, and since we already knew the quests, what we had to face in each quest, it was pretty easy to just prepare for that ahead of time. So I would say maybe first couple lives, just prep yourself, start lower, and build your way up.
And you're talking about running at level 30, like 30, 31, 32 quests, right?
Yeah, yeah, all the legendary stuff. There was a couple times where I did R1 leveling up in heroics because some of the level 13 and above quests are decent XP. Um, but the best XP is the legendary quests
For sure.
at cap.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, even on live, I just like R1 just for the extra heroic XP until I really get to the legendary stuff, and that's when you kind of start ramping it up and you get a lot more XP.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the 120% XP bonus to just your actual heroic XP is a nice boost.
Mm-hmm. You get a little bit on the top, right? But
Yeah, for sure.
so fine. So basically, get up to cap, run, find the quests that you like to run. If you don't like running them, you don't have to run them every life. I don't hardly ever run Creeping Death, for example, on live, unless there's people actually running it. Uh, and then take a life, reincarnate, do it again,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Like Creeping Death is a great example. I mean, even on hardcore, we didn't do that, and like you said, on live, usually don't bother. It's a pretty long quest, and you usually have to have a trapper, or else it's going to be a long, long quest.
Yeah.
But starting with content like daily, so Grim and Barrett, Memoirs, Lost at Sea, the Age of Rage chain is pretty good. Ravenloft's pretty good, and they don't scale too hard, so it's a good way to get a feel for what Endgame Reapers is like, and just build up from there.
Although we should mention, we're getting close to a point where the scaling and the difficulty levels actually going to be coming down a bit. Now, we're going to gear is going to be coming down a bit, and I'm not exactly sure where like the Epic Destiny power level is going to end up being. Um, but so if anything, I expect these content to be more accessible.
Yeah, for sure. It'll definitely be something everyone's gonna have to play around with when the time comes. Um, but yeah, like even some of the newer quests, I was talking to some guildies and they're running it on Lamania, and they said it felt like doing R7 even though they're on R10. So
Sure.
it'll be a good way to kind of get newer and more casual players into the Endgame Reaper content and start building that bridge.
And don't feel if you can get into if you are trying to get Reaper XP and you can get into higher skull groups, that's cool. But don't be afraid to. You don't have to do them all in R10s or right. Like I know on live for me, like I'll throw up a group for R6 and we'll just go through stuff pretty fast. And it usually fills pretty quick. Like there are people out there that will run not R10 with you.
Yep, 100%. And especially for the lower difficulties, it gives you more flexibility with builds, with what you quote unquote require in the party. Um, like for example, it's easier to self heal and heal others on a non divine tune in R1 or R4 than it is
Right.
on R10. Um, so a little bit more flexibility, and like you said, there are plenty of people that don't want to touch R10 right away, and so you guys can just work on building that bridge up there.
So you did about 70 of the quests. It's kind of weird to think there's seven there's at least 70 quests you can run at that level. But there are actually about that many quests. More is what like 100 or so at 30 32,
Yeah, something like that.
something like that. Yeah.
I just checked the list that I have, and it was 66 that we ran, to give you an exact number.
Right.
Um, but definitely a handful of stuff that we skipped in like Feywild. Um, Creeping Death was another one of them. But yeah, it's with the new content that they're releasing, it's a lot more accessible to pick and choose what quests you want to run, and how many quests you can run to get Reaper XP.
So do you know about how much Reaper XP you got per life and about how many lives you ran?
Yeah, so I would say towards the later half of the lives, I was getting about 500k RXP per life. That is with a 50% pot, Voice of the Master, and the 5% Guild XP Shrine. Um, I'm not too sure exactly how much it was towards the lower half of the lives because I only started keeping track later on.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll say about 500k, even 450, whatever. But it took 17 lives to get it done.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's about 500K. It's what 6.25,
5.65, yeah.
5.625. There it is. So yeah, if you got 500,000 Reaper XP per life, that would put you around somewhere between around 12 runs, 10 to 12 runs, something like that. So, and it'll vary a little bit. I've actually been keeping track of my lives on live and kind of set a goal at 450,000 Reaper XP, and usually I reincarnated about 500,000, if not a little bit more. depending on the bonuses that are going on.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. On live, it's gonna be a lot easier because you're gonna have those body bonuses. You're gonna have those RXP boosts, those VIP boosts. We didn't get that on hardcore, so it's gonna be even easier to get those wings done, or just get RXP in general done.
There's also just more people and they're more powerful,
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly, exactly. You already have your gear. You have some
uh
foundation already, so it should be a lot smoother.
so, yeah, anything else you want to say about Hardcore Season 4?
I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I'm looking forward to next season and pushing some more boundaries then.
Anything you want to see in Hardcore Season 5, or any goals you think you might have for Season 5?
It's tough to say because it's probably going to change. But we were talking about doing like the max possible favor, so everything basically but Shroud, unless there's extra lives again. Um,
Good luck with
but
Abbott.
don't worry, I'm already working on those strategies. But yeah, I mean, like
Give
no
me a
one's done
call, I'll
Abbott yet,
help.
right?
Uh,
Yeah, no one's done Abbott, so it'd be great to get that done. I know this season, like there was a group that did Mark of Death and Strahd, for example, which was insane. I mean, I wouldn't even think about doing that.
mhm.
So kudos to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope they don't bring back the extra lives, but that's just me, and I know I'm gonna get some hate in the comments for that. But
It was fun. It made it somewhat more accessible, but it also is nice to not always have extra lives.
yeah, exactly.
Anything else you maybe want to see? You'd like to see for a change in hardcore?
I definitely want to see a continuation of the new champs. Like every
Yeah.
season, I want to see new champs, and maybe even an event like how there was a mimic event.
Mm.
Maybe someone was talking on the forums about like a Maybar event or something similar to that. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thanks for spending some time with me. Do you want to point people to any of your stuff?
Yeah, sure. So my Twitch is Apocalypse Dom, and yeah, that's where I'll be streaming most of my stuff. Just did some heroic raids the other day. Going to be attempting a two hot duo in the near future, so keep an eye out for
Good luck, sir.
that. Thank you.
I'm a little surprised that you're looking for more things to challenge yourself on Too Hot with after
Yeah,
R10.
yeah. It's I promised I won't go back in there, and here I am.
Yep. Yep. There was a lot of that going around after that particular run. So,
Exactly.
all right. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks to Dom for being here today. Appreciate that. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. You can also find show notes, past shows, and more on our website. And you can find me on Twitter at DDOCast. If you'd like to join the discussion, leave a comment or email us at DDOCast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.